But there are other statements, but the one that I can think of, Constable Zungu, because he even identifies them in his statements that this is the person that is referring to in terms of the pictures. So identify a picture of accused 3 and referred him as, I think, the surname Buthelezi, and I can go to his statement. So I'm saying there was no dispute as to say the name, even though there's a Buthelezi surname, but the person that is being referred to is Mr. Mncube, who is accused number 3.
Noma ke sengacabanga ke la kodwa oqala nje ngacabanga ngayo yona ke uConstable Zungu uma elisho ke igama lelo kodwa uma esesitshengisa ke isithombe akhombe yena ke umsolo wesithathu athi noma ke ngibiza yena ke uKatos Buthelezi kodwa ke ngikhuluma nangumuntu engikhuluma ngaye akhombe yena ke umsolo wesithathu.
Now, one of the reasons that you also mentioned was the issue of DNA evidence, and you read the report in respect of the people that were in the house. You remember that?
I do remember that, my lord.
Ufundileke kunombiko ufundileke lana waloke uliko futhi noma phecelezi ke yona ke DNA ufunda ke ngabo abantu abesendini yebo kuyiqiniso.
And that report excluded the house as donors of certain areas that were swapped. Remember?
I do remember that, my lord.
Nokuthi ke lowo mbiko ke ubakhiphileke abantu abesendini ke nokuthi ke kungayibona ke abangabe bashiya ke la ekwatholakala khona ufakazi noma ke igazi yebo kuyiqiniso.
What about the accused persons before court, from accused 1 to 5? Does DNA link them to the 26th of October 2014?
My lord,
according to the report of...
yes, I'm going there. I'm going there. I'm just trying to find the right words, my lord, because when I tried to venture into this aspect during the evidence in chief, it was greatly objected by Mr. Mnisi, because I was actually going to accuse 3. So I'm trying to find the ways as to how should I actually answer the question, because my answer will be saying the report, my recollection of the report made by the police, the captain who made the report, who's an expert, excluded, at the end of the day, he says he's excluding all of the accused. However, my lord, because, and this is the part that I'm saying, when you read the report, you must read it in its entire context. You can't just select the last portion and ignore the person what he's saying above. Somewhere above, he links some of the accused in terms of what he can read. The only difficulty is that he could not find all the markers, all the certain markers to make a conclusive finding. So I was dealing with it in that context, but as I said, it didn't sit well with Mr. Mnisi and I think Mr. Mchololo in terms of my expertise, but my reliance really was what is contained in the report. So I'm not sure whether you want me to take it further on this, Mr.
Ngizama ke noma ke ubheka ke amagama ke afanelekile noma ekubona ke engawasebenzisa ngoba lo mbuzo ke uma bengizama ke ukuthi ke ngikuphenduleke kube nala khona ke kube nenkinga khona ke kuyena ke advocate Mnisi kanye naye ke advocate Mchololo ngoba ke uyasho umbiko lo negcineni ke ukuthi ke amaDNA nabasolwa kodwa ke uma ubheka nje lapho egcineni uzothola lokho, kodwa uma ubuka ke ngaphambili ubona ke umbiko ukuthi ke uthini ukuthi bakhona abasolwa ke abafakwayo noma ke ebahlanganisayo ukuthi nje lokho kubizwa ngokuthi phecelezi ke amamarker akutholakele anele ukuthi ke angasho ukuthi ngempela ke ayabafaka.
And I was saying this, my lord, in the sense that, for example, when you are looking at the investigation, if, for example, we know even the fingerprints, you need to get the certain regions of it, you need to make a conclusive finding. But if you have an individual where the expert says I can only get 4, but that 4 can be read into the suspect or the person that you're looking at, in the purpose of the investigation, you cannot ignore that person because you've got guidance. But it does not mean you are making a conclusive findings of the fingerprints. Same with the DNA. There are, for example, accused number 5. It's completely excluded, complete in my recollection of what that report says. But it says certain things that the examiner find with regard to other accused, and that's where I was at my note.
Futhi ke lokhu ke uma singenza nje ke isibonelelo mayelana nawo ke ama fingerprints uma kwenziwa ke uphenyo lapho ke siyazi ukuthi ke kune number ethize yalokho okubhekwayo ke kufanele itholweke, kodwa uma kuwukuthi ke akutholakala kanga konke lokho akusho ukuthi ke manje ke kuzofanele ke ngikushaye indiva ke lokho ngingakunaki lokho akushoyo lo okuyena obenza lolo phenyo lolo. Uma sesingabuyela khona lana ke uma singathatha yena ke umsolo wesihlanu, uma ke lo obenza lelo phenyo ke ushilo ukuthi ke akukho nje lutho ke atholile ngayo umsolo wesihlanu kodwa ke engasho okufanayo mayelana nabanye.
And I think it's the same position with accused number 1, my lord, that in my recollection the report did not find any, even if it's not complete markers, any with regard to accused 1. And that, my lord, it's in support of the investigation because the investigation indicates that accused 5 was outside. He was the driver of the vehicle, and I'm saying it's alleged in terms of the investigation. And accused 1 was standing outside, so he could have not left anything. It doesn't matter how small or big anything, because there would have been a contradiction. So there is a collaboration in that sense. But as I said, the markers and the issues that the two advocates had a concern about is what I wanted to go into, but it wasn't sitting well with the defense.
Uyafana-ke noma singakhuluma ngaye-ke umsolo wesihlanu wokuqala ngexolisa-ke ukuthi-ke nalapho-ke akukho okutholakele ukuthi-ke khona-ke okwasalela noma-ke awakushiya-ke khona lapho. Lokho-ke kuyahambisana-ke nalo-ke uphenyo esilenzile, ngoba-ke kuyasho-ke uphenyo ukuthi-ke umsolo wokuqala yena-ke wayemi ngaphandle, umsolo wesihlanu wayengaphandle naye-ke esemotweni, ngoba kuyena noma inhlolo zithi-ke wayengaphandle-ke kuyena oshayela imoto. Ngakho-ke akukho awayengakushiya-ke lapho. Yilokho-ke ebengifisa ukuthi ngisho ngikusho-ke nangaphambilini, kodwa kwaba yila khona-ke abameli baba nenkinga.
Yes, my lord.
Brigadier, the bottom line is that the DNA expert that came here excluded all 5 accused persons because there is a certain minimum and maximum that you must meet for you to include persons as donors of a DNA sample. So all 5 of them were excluded, and it's not up to you to interpret that evidence. He spoke, he testified at length, going through each and every single marker where there were points of commonality differences, but the bottom line remains. He excluded all 5 accused persons before court.
My lord, that's not how I understand the investigation is done. And like I said, that's why I left this part, and I think the state advocate also, we moved away from that part, but now I'm being asked a question about it. That's not how I understand the investigation is being done. If a person, my lord, I'll make an example, make a statement to say I was robbed by this and this person, and at the end of the day, he gives you the context where he was, what was taken, whether it was male, black or white or colored, but at the end of the statement he says, I cannot identify those people. That doesn't mean a crime didn't take place, and that does not mean because he says I can't identify the perpetrators, you must now leave, forget everything that has been mentioned above. That's not how you do investigation. There are certain pointers, and if those pointers, no matter how small they are, points to some of the accused, it becomes collaboration evidence. I'm not saying it's a fact, because you're not an expert, but it's a pointer. It's the same, for example, with what is contained in Mr. Ramsipili's client's confession. When he says, I was with accused 1, 3, 4, and 5, it's what he says. It's not a fact. We needed collaboration evidence to prove indeed that there was such, my lord. So it's the first part. It must be corroborated for a conclusive finding to be made at the end.
Kodwa-ke akukuwena-ke ukuthi-ke manje uhumusha kanjani noma utolika kanjani-ke ukuthi-ke yini le ayishilo ufakazi, kodwa ufakazi-ke yena uma noma ngenkathi ebelana-ke ushilo-ke ukuthi-ke akukho okwatholakala okuhlanganiswa noma okushoyo-ke ukuthi abasolwa bobahlanu laba babe laphayana kwisigameko ngaleliya langa-ke uthi-ke akusiyona-ke indlela leyo uphenyo oluhamba ngayo wabesenza-ke isibonelo ukuthi uma ngabe umuntu eyovula-ke icala esho ukuthi-ke kunomuntu obambe inkunzi uzomusho-ke ukuthi umuntu omnyama, umuntu omhlophe, umuntu ekhaladi yini, kodwa-ke abe egcineni athi ngeshwa-ke uma ngathola-ke ithuba angeke ngikwazi-ke ukuthi-ke lowo muntu lowo ngimkhombe noma ngimusho. Akusho-ke ukuthi kufanele ukushaya indiva lokhu akushilo-ke ngaphezulu noma ukuthi-ke uphenyo seluyaphelela lapho. Kunama-marker noma-ke ama-pointers athile. Uma kuwukuthi-ke ama-pointer athile akhomba uhlangothi oluthile noma kwabanye babasolwa-ke akusho ukuthi akunganakwa lokho.
And this assertion, my lord, does not mean I'm saying the statement links them. That should not be misunderstood. I'm not saying the expert says their DNA is conclusively found. I was basically referring to what efforts or steps I took in my investigations, what guided me.
Okunye futhi-ke actually-ke ufakazi ukuthi-ke uma ngabheka-ke noma ubuke sona-ke istatimende sokonyuluka sakhe-ke umsolwa wesibili la ashoyo-ke khona-ke ukuthi wayekade enaye-ke umsolwa wokuqala, owesithathu, owesine kanye-ke nowesihlanu. Asishongo-ke ukuthi-ke lokho kuphelele, kodwa kwafanele ukuthi manje-ke senze uphenyo-ke phezu kwalokho akushilo. Okunye futhi-ke angisho ukuthi-ke lo mbiko lowo wofakazi bekade lana-ke ukuthi-ke umbiko othi-ke cha ngempela-ke lokho bakwenza-ke, kodwa sengiyakusho nje ngiyachaza-ke ukuthi yilokho akusho.
And like Advocate Munisi correctly said when he stood up on this point, it is not your opinion, Kenya. It's the opinion of the DNA expert on this point.
My lord, I think we are on the same page and we're saying the same thing. I said, I am making this submission does not mean I'm saying the expert was wrong in saying what he said. I agree with his conclusion. I'm simply saying above, if you look above what is contained there, what it says. That's number one. But number two, I do recall, my lord, that DNA, it's a mixed DNA. The donor of the second DNA was never found, which is a female, to make a conclusive finding. That's what I seem to recall during my interaction with the expert or our interaction. But there is no dispute, and such must not be created, my lord, as if I'm standing here contradicting the expert to say he is wrong. I understand the report that is written there and I agree with it, but I'm simply saying on top, he indicates certain markers that were not good enough for him to make a conclusive finding. So it's not, in essence, my lord, a complete exclusion. That's what I'm saying. It's where somebody says, I've read this, 0. I've read this 0. There are certain markers, but unfortunately they were not enough for the expert to make a conclusive finding, my lord.
Engishoyo ukuthi lana sikhuluma ke into eyodwa angimile la ukuthi ngiphikisane naye ke ungoti noma ufakazi ke owasho ukuthi akukho okufaka ke abasolwa ke lana akufani nesehlakalo la khona ke umuntu ezayo ethi cha angitholanga lutho u0 angitholanga lutho lana u0 kodwa ke uyasho ukuthi yebo kukhona ke okutholakele kodwa ke akwanele ukuthi ke afinyelele kwisinqumo ke esiphelele noma ekuyisona ke.
So there's no conflict or difference of opinions insofar as what the expert is saying, my lord, and what I'm saying. But basically, I'm not contradicting him or disagreeing with him.
Angiphikisani naye ukuthi ke noma ngiphikisani naye ke noma ngisho okunye okuhlukile kuloko akushoyo ke mina njengoba ngimela.
Okay. And then you also referred to the AVL report for the motor vehicle driven by Longwe Twala.
Yes, the track. I think it's a tracker. Yes, my lord.
The tracker
system, correct, my lord.
Ngikhulumile ngayo ke i-tracker system mayelana ke nemoto eyayishayelwa uyena ke uLongwe Twala.
And in that context, how does it say that the relevance to there being intruders or no intruders?
Well, my lord, we know the cell phone, the missing phone, the phone that was in the same tower, including with Longwe prior to the commission of the incident, that after Longwe with his car and his phone tower, the number that he gave, goes to Phoenix, that phone goes to Muleleki. So if Longwe was the shooter, you would then expect, and if this was a fabricated story of the so-called missing phone, you would have expected, and I said this, my lord, to see one of the people in particular, because we're talking about Mr. Longwe, going together with the so-called missing cell phone, or the phone remaining behind. So the essence of the AVL was to show, or rather the tracking system, my lord, was to indicate that it was moving together with the cell phone and it went to the clinics, contrary to the phone that was in the tower that was alleged to have been taken, which went to a different direction. And we could not find evidence as to who was there, because the people who were in the house all went to clinics. So people in the house are sitting at the clinics with the deceased, my lord. The phone is sitting at the last tower of Moleleki. Then the question is, who is in possession of this phone if there were no intruders, or at least one person, because the phone cannot work on its own. So that was the essence of that submission, my lord.
Kubaluleka noma kuba semqoka ke kwale yambiko ke AVL noma so le tracker ke mayelana nayo imoto ikalongwe ke njengoba kwakunale insolo ke eyishoyo ke uma kuukuthi ke kwakuyena ke uLongwe ke owadubula ukuthi ke nale phone ke uma iya ngale kulo lahlangothi njengoba laba basendlini bona ke baya eclinics ekuyila ixosha khona ke neyakhe ke uLongwe iphone kusho ukuthi ke ubani ke manje lo owayephethe lo makhala kokuphi lo owaya kolunye ihlangothi ke eMuleleki ngalesikhathi ke laba ababesendlini bona baya eclinics.
Okay. Now, let us move closer to these events now. And then we start with, you've made reference already to Exhibit BB, that is the identity kit with which you say you confronted accused number 2. You recall that?
I recall that, my lord, yes.
Ngiyakhumbula ke ngikhuluma ngayo ke umdwebo lo noma ke identity kit engithi ke ngabuza umsolo noma ngakhulumisana nomsolo wesibili ngayo.
I'm going to request that it be beamed so that we all can see what we are referring to. My lord, I'm waiting for my learned colleague to connect to the monitor.
So in the meantime, we keep calling that cell phone a runaway phone.
Yes, my lord. It's basically the phone that belongs to Miss Kelly Khumalo, the 072 number.
But does it actually belong to her?
Yes, it's a cell phone, my lord.
And the number was also identified by Colonel Stein and the other gentleman.
Yes, yes, but he also identifies it on her statements that it's her number.
Oh,
and
she said
it was, yes, no, it is identified. It's identified that it's one of her cell phones that she disclosed to the police to say I have 2 cell phones, the 072 number, which is alleged that was taken by the perpetrators, and then she remained with the 082 number.
So common sense or logic tells us that there must be forensic evidence before 8 o'clock going this way. There must be forensic evidence that that phone, the runaway phone, was inside the house.
There is forensic evidence, my lord. There is forensic evidence that place it in there together with the other cell phones,
yes.
But not only just her cell phones, with the other people who were in the house under the same location.
Okay.
After the incident, then we have these different directions, my lord.
I hear you.
Uyamana khuluma ke ngalo makhala kokuphi ukuthi ke makhala kokuphi ke owabaleka ke makayirana we phone yebo ke washo ke yena ke uMr Khumalo naye ke statement sakho uyasho ukuthi wena ama cell phone namagama amabili 072 kanye no 082 072 ibona ke emuva kwesigameko owathathwa ke kukhona ke nobufakazi okushoyo ke futhi ukuthi leyo cell phone leyo ngaphambi kwesigameko yayikhona ke lapho endlini kanye nama cell phones abanye labo ababesendlini.
Okay, we do have Exhibit BB on the screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, if we look at the depiction of the sketch on the left, I did ask this question before to, I think it was Sergeant Messiah. Is that photograph as well depicted with that sketch on the left with the hairstyle of dreadlocks, according to what you can see there?
No, it has a hoodie. Are you referring to
Yes,
the
the
person
one
on the
on the
left hand
left.
side, on my
Yes.
left? No, the person with the hoodie is on the right. I mean, sorry, with dreadlocks, and the person on the left is wearing a hoodie, my lord.
Because I'm looking, if you can be given the pointer so that I can show you the parts that I'm referring to. I'm not open to this.
Yes,
Yes, if we point, you
Yeah.
see on the, yes, those parts, and also on the left hand side.
yes,
Do you see those parts?
yes, I do.
Yes, are those depiction of dreadlock hairstyle, or is it just the background?
My lord,
You can,
I think it will be difficult for me to say
Okay.
for the fact. I think I don't want to mislead. I do see that there's some blackness showing up there, but I can't say. It's more clearer here where you see the dreadlocks. So one can say it looks like it's part of the dreadlocks or the reflection of the picture. I don't know, because I was not involved in this, my lord. That's a difficult I have.
Ubunzima enginabuke lana ukuthi ngangasiyona ke ingxenye yabo khona umnyama okubonakalayo ke ukhuluma lana ke nalo sabothile kodwa ngeke ngisho ngesiqiniseko uma ubheka kubukeka engathi iwona kodwa ngilana ke kulesi sithombe kona ke ayacaca ukuthi ke iwona ke ama dreadlocks.
okay, I'll revert back to Exhibit J because this is Exhibit BB. And then,
Sorry, my lord, sorry, Mr. Ramsipele, to say something because it just cropped, it just came into my mind, my lord, that and obvious, maybe let me not disturb your line of thought. I'll come back to it later because I think I might disrupt where you're going. It's fine. I'll come back to it later, my lord. But I want to say something about this picture.
okay,
Khona ke befuna ukusho ngalesi sithombe kodwa ngizobuyela kona ke kamuva angifuni ukuthi ke ngiyiphazamiseke imibuzo yakho.
and your testimony is that on the 18th of June 2020 and at Carltonville at Sibanye, when you spoke, interrogated, interviewed accused number 2, you then confronted him with this ID kit and you told him that the person depicted or the sketch depicted on the left bears a resemblance to him.
Yes, I did say that, my lord.
Ushilo ukuthi ke nge-18 zika June 2020 esibanyeke wakhuluma ke naye umsolwa wesibili umtshela ke ukuthi ke umuntu lona ke odwetshiwe ke la noma kule identity nako khona ke noma ke unako ke ukufana naye yebo ngakusho lokho kuyena.
My lord, what I forgot to mention, perhaps let me just deal with it. This is the part I was saying I want to deal with it later. I didn't mention it in my evidence in chief, is that when I was during the profiling process of the accused, obviously the ID, the age was determined. Now, when I made this assertion that I think this person looks like him, what I was also taking into account is that his ID number, in terms of the description given by one of the witnesses, he described the person with the hoodie. He described obviously the color of the hoodie, which I will get into, as the person who's about 25 years old. Now, if you look at the age of accused number 2, and you count backwards to 2014, it takes you exactly to 25 years. And that was described by one of the witnesses, is Mr. Makaleni. We dealt with him. Mr. Ramsipele took me through when he was identified. He made a statement, but also when he was interviewed on the statement of Warrant Officer Steenkamp. We dealt with it last week. He says this person with the hoodie is 25 years old. He also mentions the measurements. I don't recall exactly as to how he says this person, how tall he is, my lord. But he further mentions the issue, the color of the hoodie that was worn by this second intruder. In other words, the person with the, not the second intruder, rather the person he saw outside wearing the hoodie, because he mentioned more than two people. But what is of importance is the age, which corresponds with the accused exactly. We can count even now backwards. It will take you to 25 years in 2014 when this incident took place. But furthermore, fast tracking now to after the 18th of June 2020, my lord, to the time when I interviewed Constable Zungu, and he subsequently submitted a statement. In his statement, he clearly indicates that at the hostel, and it's contained in his statement, accused 2 was wearing a black hoodie, which was described at the crime scene on the 24th. He says he was wearing a black hoodie. He changed to a different hoodie of a different color. But when they came back, or when you saw him, the hoodie was wearing is black in color. It's contained in his statement, my lord.
Lokho ebengifuna ukusho ke ngaphambilini ngathi ngizobuyela kubona ke kamuva ke cabanga ukuthi ke angikusho ke khona manje ulona ke udaba lwehoodie nombala ke owashiwo ke kanye futhi ke nokuthi ke uma omunye wefakazi ke cabanga ukuthi yena ke Mr. Makeleni sikhulumile ngaye kwiviki elidlule esho ke nokuthi ke umuntu abona ke egqoke leyo hoodie iminyaka yakhe ke engaba ke u25 uma singabala ke ukusuka manje sibuyele emuva ke siya ke na ke 2014 sesingathola ukuthi ngempela ke iminyaka yakhe ke umsola wesibili ke yahamba bona ke o25 futhi ke uyasho ke noma emkala kodwa-ke ushilo kodwa-ke angisakhumbuli ukuthi wathini ukuthi ubude bakhe kwaba umuntu wayemude kangakanani. Sibuyele futhi kuyena-ke uConstable uZungu oshilo-ke ukuthi-ke ehostele nkathi-ke belapho-ke ukuthi-ke umsolo wesibili wayegqoke ihudi eyayimnyama noma eshilo-ke ukuthi sebuya-ke wayishintsha-ke kodwa-ke uyakhuluma ngayo ihudi leyo emnyama.
My recollection, my lord, is that also I seem to recall that the description in terms of the height given by Mr. Makaleni was about 1.8. What I'm not sure of, and I can check during the long adjournment if there is any report or is contained in a statement of Colonel Mangena, because the exact measurement of how tall he is, this is now accused to, was established by Colonel Mangena during that exercise of trying, but that I don't recall, my lord. But Mr. Makaleni's one, I do recall that he estimated him to be 1.8. So one will have to see what Colonel Mangena says in collaboration of that. But the woody, the age, my lord, fits in. So the essence of this submission, my lord, as I said, when I confronted with him with the similarities, I forgot to mention that I was also at that time, because I knew how old he was, that he was fitting in terms of the estimation of the age by the neighbors who alleged that he saw someone wearing the hoodie back on the day of the incident, my lord.
Okunye futhi-ke ebengakusho-ke ukuthi-ke ubude bakhe-ke noma wayemude kangakanani-ke kodwa mangikhumbula kahle-ke uma uMr. Makeleni wayemchaza-ke omunye lona ambona-ke ukuthi-ke kwaku-1.8 kungafanele ngibuye umuva-ke manje ngithi uma ngabe yena-ke uKelly Mangena wayekhala-ke ukuthi yena-ke waqala wathini-ke ubheka-ke ukuthi khona yini ukuhlangana khona-ke. Okunye futhi-ke ngakhohlwa-ke kuyena-ke noma kusho-ke ukuthi-ke bathini uma ngabe sebechaza-ke abantu labo noma-ke omakhelwane.
Yes, ma'am.
Brigadier, let me put this so that we are not misunderstood.
Yes.
I read to you the contents of Exhibit J as they are. I did not take you through the description of Makaleni for the truthfulness or non-truthfulness thereof. I was simply reading the statement because I am aware, as you've already told the court, that Mr. Makaleni is deceased. So there are issues with PSA Evidence Act that must still apply, and the state did not apply for that evidence to be led in terms of Section 3.
As the court, please, my lord, there's a legal proposition. I mean, once you put a statement on record, you are saying, my lord, that it's not in dispute. You consciously put hearsay evidence on record. If you put hearsay evidence consciously on record, you cannot later on complain that it cannot be admitted. That's what my learned fact did. We therefore submit, my lord, that the proposition that is being put to the witness now that this is hearsay evidence is not correct, since they themselves put that on record.
My lord, that aspect is that way because I can tell this court.
What?
I can tell this court that Amanda Steenkamp, who compiled Exhibit J, it is my intention to call her during
fine.
our
Yes.
defense.
No.
Yes.
I think you're talking cross purposes. He's quoting a legal principle, your brother, Madoi,
Yes.
concerning putting hearsay evidence.
It is. I'm very well aware that if I solicit hearsay evidence, it's then admissible.
Yeah, right. That's what he's talking about.
Yes. So we're going forward because remember my follow-up question to this Makaleni after the description given to Ms. Steenkamp. I asked you whether Makaleni was one of the persons that were in the house or was it somebody that was just simply passing in the streets?
Yes, I do recall that question being asked, my lord.
Ngiyakhumbula-ke lowo mbuzo ubuzwa-ke ukuthi-ke ingabe uMakeleni kwakuwomunye wabantu ababesendlini noma kwakuwumuntu nje owayedlulela emgwaqweni.
And the reason I was reading that statement was twofold. One was to show the description of the firearm provided by the people in the house, and secondly to show that the people in the house themselves, to Mrs. Steenkamp, none of the people described the features, the height, the length, anything to Mrs. Steenkamp. Those were my reasons. So the description of dreadlocks, golden insert, 1.8 meter in height came from Makaleni, who's not the person that was in the house. That was the purpose I was showing. I was reading Exhibit J.
No, it is correct, my lord, but one also must understand on what context was Makaleni called in as a witness. If you read his statement, he indicates that he was passing the Khumalo's house, that was the scene, and he saw people who were sitting outside, which he took note of. As he was coming back, I think from the shop or from a certain walk, he saw some of these people running to the opposite direction. And then later, when he get closer to the Khumalos, that's when he was informed that these people who were running were involved in the shooting. So that's the context. That's why the investigators focused on him, because he was able to identify the alleged perpetrators outside the house before the incident took in, before they went into the house. That's how his statement was taken. So it was in that context.
Uma-ke bekufundela-ke lo Exhibit J bekutshengisa-ke ukuthi-ke abantu labo ababesendlini-ke bona akukho abakhuluma noma bechaza-ke ukuthi labo abantu babesendlini omunye wayenezinyoka legolide kude noma-ke bechaza-ke ukuthi nama-feature athile. uMakheleni yena kwakuwumuntu wayendlulela, yebo kuyiqiniso ukuthi wayendlula-ke lapho emgwaqweni, kodwa wabona-ke ukuthi kwakunabantu ababe lapho-ke uma esebuya-ke futhi la ayebuya khona esitolo noma-ke kuhambo lolo aluthathile-ke wabona-ke futhi labo bantu labo-ke sebegijima-ke noma bebaleka-ke manje la esezotshela khona ukuthi la bantu-ke abebebaleka-ke ibantu ababe lana, yingakho-ke singabaphenyi-ke sabona-ke kusemqoka ukuthi starte istatement sakhe.
My Lord, I see it's just past 1 o'clock. Is this an opportune time to take the long agenda?
Okay, fine. Sorry, just there's a witness who speaks about a garage. Is that the same gentleman?
What?
Same person said a garage.
Garage.
No, remember that.
No. This one speaks to them. He places them
Who
around
says
the
he
guest house.
saw some people at the garage?
No, I think gas station is the way
Gas
that it
station.
is.
Okay. Hey, but
Is that witness? Is the same? Well, not a witness. It's the same person, my lord.